place, that $7,000 is reflective of that additional testing. The $7,000, or the contract that we just signed with Weston and Sampson, we're at our 20-year mark with the landfill, and at the 20-year mark, you can reassess and apply to the DEP for reduction in what's required on the testing front for that. And as a result, we could see upwards of $7,000 savings a year over the next 10 years until the 30-year mark hits, when really that's sort of the 30 years, the gold standard of that. So
This represents both the increase for PFAS testing and the hoped for reduction.
no, so the 40 represents the maintaining the existing testing numbers that we have, because we're applying, we don't know how quick DEP will reply, we don't know if they'll accept it, so we put in the
So is
number.
that really gonna go for 47 then? There's a request for
Worst case, I mean, the reality is that the 40 represents what the testing is today, tomorrow, and for the next handful of months at least. Could be another year before DEP responds to our application in the positive, and they could still come back in the negative. So the 40 is gonna cover what the testing would be.
My question is, why isn't the proposed 47,000?
It is, so the 7's additional on
It's up
top
to the
of the
side in
40.
red.
Yeah. I see it in the, okay, I just didn't see it in the numbers that get totaled up. but okay.
It doesn't, it stays out in the red.
Yeah, okay, but it'll show up in the next one.
Yeah,
That's
it will.
right.
It will.
Okay, we'll see it next week then. Gotcha, thanks.
Page 15, Board of Health.
Can I just ask, I don't remember from the last time, we're adding in the additional money to pick up the dead animals, and I don't want to get into that discussion again. But we did, we had to pick them up
It's gonna be the
before,
elephant
so
market
what
also.
budget was it coming over? Is this just moving over
No,
from another?
we've been doing it, there's been a lot of liability to the town, the way we've handled it historically. Steve Shepherd's department would handle dead animals, which time to time might have disease, other things. And it was prior to my time determined through, well, the Park and Cemeteries Commission objected to the fact that it was part of Steve's responsibility, the Superintendent of Parks and Cemeteries, to pick this up. It was then decided by the interim town administrator prior to me that it actually should fall under the Board of Health.
Oh, okay,
So-
that's right, they hired people to do it
Steve's got a
professionally.
cemetery, I don't get it.
He'll still dig the holes, maybe.
He buries dead animals all the
Yeah.
time.
So this is reflective of actually having a service with TW Excavating that will come out $150 per animal during each call. We've set up protocols internally so that if certain level of size on the animal, we're not getting calls on chipmunks, we're getting calls on deers,
Sure.
you know, and larger size.
Deer and-
So we're not spending $150 for some of the.
We're spending 15 to 35 per, I wrote it down, per deer.
I'm sorry, what's that?
15 to $35 per deer. I had,
Okay.
someone raised it and I wrote down the note, so in case you wanna know how
Okay.
much each deer is costing. Can I just ask you, if we're getting reimbursed for the vaccine, why do we have to put $3,700 in the budget?
Because there's the upfront cost that happens for the purchase of the vaccines themselves. So that's reflected
And
in the
it
actual
takes
cost.
over a year to be reimbursed, we won't get it back in a year?
Well, it doesn't go back, this goes into the general fund,
Goes general fund.
so it doesn't come back into the budget, so.
So it's in the revenue side.
Same problem.
It's another one of those things.
Could do a flu vaccine enterprise fund if we sold, which probably not
It's
worth it.
growing, so.
Yeah, it's a shot.
Oh,
in the
it's
dark.
growing.
Okay, great, page 16.
Clean.
North line.
Clean as far as I'm concerned.
Fantastic, page 17. Library, I think Lynn, you had a question on that?
Yeah, we just didn't really have time to get into this one, we kind of flew through it, so. Let's see, it was like 15,000 total, so we had what?
I got a question on the water bill for the library, and there's a couple other departments that we pay the town a water bill. What the hell do we do that for? Is that because it's an enterprise fund? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Beverly, town buildings did not pay a water fee.
Yeah.
The commissioners have decided that to be equitable and fair in the community, whether you're,
Doesn't make any sense.
it ultimately comes back to the town. It's the tracking of how much usage, it's the.
And then we pay an administrator to do the tracking.
But it's an enterprise fund, and that might be the requirement.
Right, right.
This, the computer expenses just looks kind of odd the way it's done here. So in fiscal '20, we budgeted $6,800.
Where are we?
Computer library is 3045, it's about Under library salaries.
53045.
Well, there we go,
Five,
yeah,
yeah.
got it.
So last year we budgeted $67.99. This year we're budgeting nothing.
Yep.
But we're increasing it to 2,100 and then we're asking for another 4,000. Are we just getting back to, how come we just didn't budget in
So
21?
the 2194 you're referring to?
2166, it might have changed.
Sorry,
Yeah, 2166.
So they basically asked for a little over $6,000.
It's bringing back up to kind of what it
6,000.
was, only a little less. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering why we budgeted nothing and then we put it back in two chunks.
The library asked for a new line item to clearly indicate expenditures for software, telecommunications costs. The library supports 13 staff, desktop, 17 public computers, the Wi-Fi staff and public network, antivirus software licenses purchased yearly for staff computers, Wi-Fi.
Oh, never mind, I answered my own question. That's in actuals. There was nothing budgeted in 20. I'm looking at
And
20.
the actual 67
Actual.
so
That was
far.
actual,
Yeah.
20 was
Yep.
actual, yeah.
67.99 is
Yeah.
actual, so yeah, you're right, they didn't budget anything in 20.
Yep.
So they're just doing it in two.
Creating a new line item
That's all,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, but in
to
two chunks.
reflect the actual cost.
2166
Yeah.
and then adding in an extra 4.
4,089.
That's not all that unreasonable, particularly given the increased use of interconnected and internet
Yeah,
services.
no, that's fine. I thought that was the budgeted for last year, and so I wondered
Yeah,
why
and I
it
hear
dropped
you.
out and then
I
put
hear
back
you.
in.
Yeah,
Got it.
okay.
And the 9,000 was maintenance and repairs, and we don't think we can get that from any fund
I
anyway.
want that to be a long-term conversation about, but that's a TBD.
There is, I
It
think,
gets to a lot of politics.
didn't we see something that they were gonna fund part of that with,
Kevin, you talked to David Stern, you know a little.
Were they gonna
about
fund
I
it?
did.
Okay.
Had a good
yeah,
conversation.
Yeah.
It was more high level, I didn't get into the weeds with it, but he gave me an understanding where his perspective is around the fund. You know, we talked a little bit about with the economic development,
Mhm.
with the fund to be looking to actually do potentially some pop-up art in the exterior portion of the space, which will be actually really fantastic, you know, having something that people can see when they come through that rotates, nothing permanent, rotation of a pop-up art as well.
But the other piece is the ongoing conversation that since there's a trust, at least the Gould Day, is to help support the collections there. The
Correct.
question is, if you're buying new books, that's covered. If you're buying the shelves to put the books on, maybe that's covered. If you're painting the walls to be in the room that the shelves are in that hold the books, that's covered. But then when it gets to the roof that keeps the water from leaking on it, oh no, we're not gonna do that. And so I think we're not gonna resolve it this time, but I think there's an overall need to look at, is that an underutilized resource to the town, because it was given for the benefit of the town, that we should look at reassessing the priorities and criteria by which it's made available. And I will just say, you haven't been here long enough, but it is a pretty political issue.
Yeah, pick that one up.
What'd you say?
We certainly understand that there's two funds, right?
There's two funds, and I get confused
Is
between
used
two
a
of it,
lot,
yeah.
Yeah,
is used a lot, and then the other one is this one that funded the expansion of the library.
And
For 20 years, but
you'll
there's two of
find
them.
out that David
One is
Strawn
used,
has
okay.
some very strong opinions.
Yeah, and I think the
about
best
where that money
approach, I
goes.
mean, I've had a very positive conversation with
Mhm.
Mr. Strum to better understand it, and I think he's an elected official, you know, he has his mission and his interpretation, and I think it's trying to think creatively of how, like the pop-up art, for example, of how we can do something that he's supportive of, that can still meet some of our needs, hopefully. So, starting the conversation, and as things come up, look forward to working with him and Laura on trying to reconcile or get in line with what we need and
Yeah.
what's available to us.
we're not gonna change that now.
I
Let's
get
go
the
on.
impression that he's backed off and softened a little bit on that, because I think he's agreeing to pay some maintenance work out of that fund, and he didn't used to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, so there is some work that I was at the library commission meeting a few weeks back, and that they went through sort of what was proposed, and there didn't seem to be any disagreement of what the library board was proposing for trust fund money versus capital versus operating. And there was a couple in there that included, they weren't books and they weren't artwork.
Roof repairs, I think.
I don't remember if that, I don't have it in
So
front
the
of me.
kind of the thing that comes out that's in my.
The library commission at the end of the day was, I think, they were on the same page, I guess is what I think.
Okay.
Just a quick question on the
Yeah.
cleaning services. So it looks like we're on target. We had a budget of 15,708 in 20, and half a year is 7,200. So it looks like we're gonna come in under that. But they're asking for an additional 2,357. Was there something
sorry,
like
what line
flooding? I'm sorry, there's cleaning, library contracted, it's like 5 items down.
It's a 52,410. You know, there may be an increase
Cleaning service.
in negotiated cost, contract cost.
It could be a contract issue, I'm not sure.
It could be
But
contract
up-
issue.
That's a huge percent,
Yeah, it is.
23 to 30.
The town is
I
going
mean,
out
see
to bid for
Masco's
new
bus
contract for cleaning services. The library has been advised to
Yeah.
increase the line item by 15%.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
We'll
it.
see what the actuals
I
are
don't know who
next year.
advised them 15%. It may have been Donna.
Yeah,
for
but
all I
now
know.
sometimes that stuff goes.
Was it Donna?
Through the contractors.
Yeah,
She's been talking.
Keep in mind that with minimum salaries going up in Massachusetts on a march to $15 per hour, we're gonna see some of these services that are contracted that use minimum wage labor, they're gonna be going up.
Mhm.
And, you know, obligations to carry more coverage for them, things like that.
Anybody got any problem with $5,000 for holiday on the green?
Nope.
I did ask Steve to provide me with an itemized list of
Thank
the
you.
expenditures around that, so, I mean, 5,000, I think is,
I'd say we better have it for purposes of an annual town meeting.
sure, no, it's,
This is
no, yeah.
line item.
Can't
What's it gonna be used
We have
for?
to
but if
take that
anyone
out.
asks, right, if anyone asks the question, we'll know sort of what
You
the.
need to have it.
Yep, good.
And for me, that line item, my personal preference is that holiday and green exists because I believe something was put in and taken out, I think at the last town meeting possibly, to help push towards that. I think that with regards to that, for me, I'd rather see, maybe for next year, it was a little late in the game when I got to that, where we call it maybe something else.
just maybe more general.
More
Yeah, I
general,
don't like to identify a specific
Yeah.
nonprofit organization and say that you're getting money without going to an RFP.
Yeah.
For that service. They might be the respondent who gets it, or we can title it something like downtown economic, whatever. It's
Yeah.
just some holiday lights, whatever we wanna call it, but something more general that we contribute
or special
towards.
events or something like that.
Absolutely, the nonprofit gets me a little
The
nervous.
history was, it used to be sort of donated, and then the request was made by the,
It's just someone.
Yeah, it's fine.
They've officially been a recreation committee, town recreation committee, which is under the park and
Oh,
parks. It's in the
subcommittee.
parks.
But, you know, it might have
So-
been Main Street Foundation before.
Or
Might have been.
It wasn't-
they may have been looser,
Was it?
but they were like
That's just
deputized in
Volunteers.
August or something to be
Volunteers.
the committee, you know, because it's not, they don't wanna be a standing committee or recreation
Sure.
committee, whatever else. They're just trying to get the job done. So there was a little bit of, but officially, I'm sure we could go back to their notes and somewhere in the minutes of Park and Cemetery, they deputized the recreation
Well, that
committee
makes me
to
feel a
do
little bit
this.
better, that it's within
It
our
should be, it should be,
operations.
Yeah.
That should be the case.
I mean, they have the gear, and it's not bad that they're up there.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds great.
Um,
Page 19, there's just some house cleaning that we made here,
Mhm.
that we've talked about in the past.
Mhm.
The only other item we talked about earlier was the insurance and the 5%. I do need to check on that to see where that came in.
it's just the property liability,
Donna was getting
workman's
that.
comp, and, you know. It's interesting, the retirement is going up. I guess that's pretty small. 11% though, that's, what happens when people retire?
And that's based on Essex County providing us
Yep.
with the actual numbers.
Yeah,
They-
Mhm.
but
So if you remember, we did have the question, it's not a critical answer, but the question as to why it went up that way. What are the pieces that drove it, whether it was a change in the anticipated return on investment, or because you have more people, or whatever else? Nice to have at some point.
Catherine did ask that question, the conversation last night with Jay. So, there is some movement on just getting that information.
Good.
And then the last page is page 20.
We've already talked about that earlier.
We're good.
So, listen, this has been good, it's been long, but it's been good. Part of what I recognize is an evolving and I find incredibly encouraging clarity and commonness of purpose of us board members and Kevin working with you to evolve to better quality oversight, guidance, input on terms of making this thing move in the direction we want to.
Yeah.
So I just want to
Fantastic.
recognize that, because I think sort of, kind of, relatively speaking, overnight, we're becoming a different kind of board and taking what I think is a really key mission around leading in this as opposed to reacting. We're taking that seriously. So every single person here has kind of put their thing out on the table. My sense is that we've been very respectful about that. So I look forward to continuing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If it's alright, can I recap on sort of just, oh, sorry.
Yeah, please do, and then I've got a couple things, that's all.
Yeah, just, so the two specific items that I have is, well, one, absolutely, it's the COLA, an adjustment on that.
Yep.
I'll make the change in the budget, we'll come up with another number, we'll see what that reflects when it
Yep.
comes to that breakdown I started with.
You keep looking at that $25,000
It's big
number.
words.
You like that number, don't you?
That's not your number, that's your number.
That's gonna go
I know
down.
you
That belongs to the
Down.
taxpayers.
The
It's
taxpayers
$4
are-
for each of us.
That's
He's
down.
working on getting that to zero.
That's my goal, and I mean, with that alone, I think we're gonna be, we might still have a
We'll
little bit of work to do, we'll see where we're at. And then I'm gonna talk with the chief regarding that overtime line, and get a
Yes.
real good handle if I can for that, and report back to you as soon as possible.
Good.
I'm going to get on the insurances from Donna, with the Maya conversation, what they represented at those meetings. And that was basically for specific line items for possible adjustments or actual adjustments that we talked about. I have other action items, but that's what I had on that.
And the other thing is that next time we get together next week, which is one of the two things I want to do, we'll have a version 2 of this, because you will have included this
Hopefully by
stuff.
the end of the week, there'll be something like a version.
It's but the point is that we're evolving towards a version 2 that will include these red numbers in and so on, the conversations we've had, the expectations. And we'll start to have a Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee numbers, so at least we'll have ours in there.
No, this is a very good process. You know, next year when we go through it for the first time, I'll try to schedule it in a certain way. Well, we've gone through it for the first time, but when I
Yeah.
can start at the very beginning of the process,
Start earlier and everything.
will be a lot of opportunity to sort of get ahead of some of these things. So we're already talking about it, understanding what the priorities are. So as I work with the department heads and meet with them, I have an understanding of some of what your priorities are that I can reflect in that budget, hopefully.
Good.
But, you know, building up a relationship with the FinCom has been great too. You know, I've talked with John often and we're able to sort of give each other, John, this is where we're at, version 2 coming out at the end of the week. He's shared me some of the concerns with FinCom, so I'm thinking about that. So I think the sort of the relationship building and the process that we're creating has been a very positive one, and continue to grow that as we continue.
And
I think.
one of the opportunities that we may not have taken, and that some people have criticized us for, is the board not being leaders or enough of leaders in the budgeting process. And that in fact it is a cooperative process. We've had people say that the board should own it entirely. I don't have a problem with the FinCom doing what they're doing, but what I really sense is we're moving towards a much more collaborative process. It'll start earlier, it'll be more strategy oriented at the beginning, and that we're gonna end up with a much higher quality process that avoids, how many times in the past have we done last minute scrambles a week or two before the budget was due? And I feel we may still have some of that, but we're moving away from the need to do that by getting things more organized. So I just think it's great. That said, I want to thank you, Kevin, for all you've done to get it to this.
Sorry, I got a little loopy at the end there.
No.
I'm getting angry.
I did get a little angry. I didn't have a chance to eat lunch today, it was just straight through, and
You didn't snarl, you didn't
Your
show.
mama always said to eat your lunch.
No, I
Yeah.
should have brought some.
You needed your
I didn't
red
wanna- my
carrots.
plan was not to have to eat in front of you, but.
I'm gonna bring a box of Jolly Ranchers in, you just need to keep it with sugar. It's all right.
Are we gonna schedule another work session? or are we
First
doing
thing
it
we're
on
gonna
Monday
do is
night?
we're going to
I have
go
no
to
comments.
the,
No comments.
Oh, no comment.
this, so,
Anybody have
do
any
you wanna
comments?
make a motion?
I motion to approve the Board of Selectmen working session minutes of January 16th, 2020.
Second,
Second. Oh.
any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously, thank you very much, that was quick. And the second thing is, let's pick a meeting for the capital side of things
Yeah.
next week. I'll just start by saying I can do I can do Tuesday, I can do Wednesday, or I could do Thursday.
What time are you thinking?
I personally like doing 2, it's a little scary we go to 5:30, but I like it a lot better than starting at 3 and pushing 6.
I can do Tuesday if
The 11th
Yeah.
yeah,
at 2.
yeah.
11th at 2, shall we count on it?
Do you know what this one is?
What's your schedule? Oh, Steve Clifford.
Good.
You see the second one though?
Got Peter Flump at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, we're not.
Oh.
It took me 6
Nope.
phone calls to
Nope.
schedule.
No, we'll move that then.
Thursdays,
Do you want, what about Wednesday? What do you have on Wednesday?
VHP's coming in at 1.
How long
I
is
could
that
do
going?
one budget an hour and a half. Can we do 2:30 on?
2:30
On
on
Wednesday, I could
Wednesday's
do it.
fine.
Which time, 2:30,
2:30?
you said?
Yeah, on
2:30
Wednesday?
would
Yeah.
be good for me.
That's a 12.
Thank you all.
And what should we bring you for lunch?
I'll
What'd you
try
say,
really hard to eat before this
2:30?
next one.
2:30 and 12.
On the 12th.
So this will be, they're gonna take care of,
Do you want to cover a little bit of just high level, not tonight, on this meeting, we'll talk about what we have for warrant, for possible warrants coming through for
Yeah.
requests as well.
yeah, I think that'd be a great
Any
idea.
Petitions?
They expired today for, right?
Usually on Monday.
And we didn't have any.
Really?
Well, I knew that there was a potential of getting one from Marshall Hook about changing the name of the board.
He's
but-
trusting us to put
but
that
I think
in.
we've already agreed, have we already agreed we're gonna do that?
Yeah, I think we need to put it,
Well, we're
Put it to
we're
voters.
after KP in the first place to get some data and
Oh,
whatever
okay.
else.
So KP, I talked with
Yeah.
Lauren on that. She's looking at that, the town administrative position, and,
What about the town administrator petition?
so a formal adoption of my position. I understand that there was, when it was done 12 years ago, just formality. Basically, they have to, the voters have to vote the position again based on certain,
Really?
I'm gonna get the language. She explained it to me, and I'm gonna see what the language says.
Then we want to be involved, or she can provide some stuff to us, but we should be very much involved.
Yeah, no, she's putting the language on the select board on that.
Any
Couple
changes to the position, or it's just a ratification that
It's formalizing
should have
it.
taken place?
So you guys can keep me around till then, if you don't mind. but-
so it basically, it theoretically should eliminate the need to go to annual town meeting every time we hire a new town administrator, which is we're supposed to do, right?
We don't have to go to the town meeting, for town administrator.
Lauren gave me a very quick hit. She came in one day, a week and a half ago, and we were going through a bunch of items in about a 30-minute span. It was like speed dating, just boom, 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 boom. And I brought up the things that we were talking about on the warrant, and she said, oh, and there's something on the town administrator regarding having to go to town meeting, regarding authority or formal step around the, I can't speak to it right now at this point, but I'm getting the language back and I'll read through
It's
it.
just an announcement.
Yeah, because
I
I
don't know.
remember there was
We'll find
one thing before, remember about who actually hires, was it with police?
Well,
There was an
yeah.
issue about whether they hire or we hire, and there was, Robin was saying there was some disagreement in the description,
Yeah.
job
There's two
description.
things that are there.
something.
There's two
There's something that the description says in the bylaw, and then there's what the Attorney General sent back in a letter, which essentially said, whatever you're reading in that bylaw means nothing if the board doesn't like it. The board has the full authority as the executive to do whatever it wants to do. So that's what needs to be cleaned up in my mind at some point, but I was not about to touch that.
We don't have
We'll
to,
get to
she
it.
just mentioned.
We don't have to, in a sense, but it's very dirty. Well, yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
You
By the way,
read, you read the letter from the Attorney General, you'll get the message that it was pretty messed up. Kelly Gunnigan wrote it, yeah.
Did we ever get a copy of the personnel regulations, or was something you were supposed to send me and you did it and?
Not
I
personnel,
can't, I don't have a copy of it. Do
I
you?
didn't do anything with personnel with Callie.
The most recent one is
I can send you
December
the,
18th, 2018 or something?
This is,
That was about a 2018.
this is an FY '21 task for Kevin, because we will be reviewing that, so looking at personal regs and
Okay.
rules and so on and so forth.
Is it online?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I
The
think it's,
2000, June 25, 18 personnel guidelines,
Yeah,
they exist
Yeah.
online.
it is online.
They do.
that's the
Okay.
latest and greatest, yeah.
And that's what I use,
Yeah.
the one that's online is the one I've been
Fine.
using. There's
Yeah,
been
I'll
some
find it.
conversation
Yeah.
about different variations of that actual document.
Yeah, right. Will the
Okay.
real one stand
I,
up?
well, I said the one that's online is the one we posted
No, but we
following.
did some research when Rob was here, and we kind of backed up when everything was approved, so that's the latest and greatest.
Robin found all kinds of holes.
I would, I'd like to give
Yeah, we went in
Lynn
the
the,
trenches.
Yeah.
I'd like to give Lynn the
Yes, it
floor.
was there. It was.
Corey, I want to give Lynn the floor.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes
Nah.
unanimously, unanimously, except for this old cuss here.